afternoon. Thank you for choosing to spend your afternoon here with us. For those who don't know, I'm Patricia Faber and I do a podcast show to help people maximise property values. It's called Maximising Property Values, and you can find it on your popular podcast platforms. So if you tap on the link above, you should be able to see your favourite app, listening app, and that will then allow you to subscribe to the show if you want to. So you'll find it on Apple, on Spotify, on Google, on Audible. However, normally that is a monologue, and I've now added a guest series from the 17th of November. I know the exact date when it started. And my guest today to join an array of amazing guests is Kerry Beckingsale. So we are going to get to know Kerry a little bit more. So, who is Kerry? Kerry, I am going to let you introduce yourself. Who are you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't know if any of us really know who we are anyway, do we? We just know what we've done and where we've got to so far. I'm on that journey as much as anybody to find out who I really am and what's important to me and so on. But for now, I'm a property investor, trainer, and mentor. I've been doing this since 2005. Well, I started property investing in 2005. The training and mentoring came a bit later. I'm a former commercial studio photographer, so did that prior to this. And all round general optimist and love it when the sun's out. How does that work for starters?
That is amazing, amazing. But Kerry, welcome to Maximising Property Values. And before we go into your main property activities, I have two questions for you. So you are lucky. I'm only asking you two questions. The first one is, so you and I are starting a business venture together. So this is a bit selfish of me, I have to admit. But
Hey, right.
so the first one is, have you ever regretted a previous business partnership? And if you have, why? The second one is, what was the process of you becoming head of training for Fielding Financial? Because there may be people who will listen to this on the replays or are listening now who might want to know how one gets to such an elevated status. You know me. So if you could maybe share that with us, that would be great as well. So over to you, Kerry.
Okay, which one do you want to know the answer to first?
Number one.
Okay. Um, right. So, have I ever regretted a business partnership? Okay, so the answer, as is always the case with me, is not straightforward, I'm afraid. So I would say that the answer to it is yes and no. So just to give you a little bit of background, when I first got into property, prior to that, by the way, I was a serial employee. So, stepping into the entrepreneurial game is a relatively new thing for me. It only sort of happened in 2012. So I haven't been doing it quite as long as you. And I actually did my property training with a very good friend of mine. And I was chomping at the bit and had always wanted to get into property and knew that this was the path for me. And I think she kind of got caught up in the ride. And I didn't recognize that that was what was happening because she had done a property development before. It was just a small bedroom, not a small bedroom, a small property, a two bed semi, or it might have been terraced actually, that she and a friend had done up and sold. So I took that to mean that she was, a property developer in the waiting like I was. So we did a couple of deals together in very short succession, and they were. So we didn't use any of our own money. I know that you know that that's something that I do, So right from the word go, as soon as I learned how to do this, I invested using other people's money. And so the first property we bought was a burnt out wreck. It's one of the ones that I use as an example when I'm training people. And it cost us £25,000. And the refurb cost us £25,000. But it was quite scary, even for me. It was the first deal that we did. And we had to sort of keep giving ourselves a little check-in and saying, well, okay, are we doing the right thing here? But we knew our numbers, and we had a team that were, handling the refurb for us. So we had confidence. And then very closely on the back of that, another property followed. And so all of the money that went into this, in fact, my business partner did actually put some funds into the deal, but we paid her in the same way that we would another angel investor. So it wasn't she wasn't just taking an equity stake; she was actually getting interest as well. And I think it was just all a bit too much for her, and I didn't realise immediately because she kept it very well hidden. I guess because she didn't want to let me down. We were friends after all. But it came to sort of deal number 3, and I was chomping at the bit and moving forward and trying to book viewings and, excuse me one second. But there was always seemed to be something that was in the way. It wasn't the right time, or, she couldn't get the time off work, or, whatever it was. There was excuses and excuses. And I started to think, what is going on here? We're not moving forward. Why is that? And in the end, it sort of came to a head, and we had a conversation, and I said, look, what's going on? And she basically admitted to me that she was struggling to sleep nights. Now, I appreciate that property isn't for everybody, certainly not the active property journey isn't for everybody, and clearly she was one of those people. Also, you have to take into her case her personal circumstances as well. Her why was not as strong as mine. I didn't have a pension to speak of. I mean, I've got little bits and pieces here and there, but nothing major. I also knew that my job wasn't going to be secure for life. I was a professional studio photographer. And of course, when digital came into play, everyone's a photographer. So I knew that ultimately that industry was going to get eroded, and it wasn't going to be secure for me. So I had a massive why. I knew that I needed to do something ASAP, and property had always been an interest for me. Now she, on the other hand, she had a good job, very secure job. She earned a decent salary. She's a civil servant, so she had a good pension. So the desire wasn't there. And so when you couple that with the sort of stuff that we were doing from the outset, we weren't doing it, the kind of buy a property, wait for the market to go up kind of thing. We were using other people's money, etc. I can see why it was a challenge for her. So why? So that's obviously, you can see from that is a regret, because what I ended up having to do was buy her out. And I was particularly generous. What we did was we split the properties that we'd bought together so far. I took the cheaper one with the less rent. She kept the slightly more expensive one with the higher rent. And I also paid her back the money that she'd put into the deal as well, even though she'd earned interest on it. And so I actually bent over backwards to clear her out so that she could feel that she had come out of it, without feeling too scathed. And so I essentially was starting again from scratch. So, so that was why I regretted it essentially, and partly also because it did affect our friendship for a while. Obviously, I was frustrated from not moving forward, and she, I think, was felt a little bit guilty also for kind of holding things up for me. But in hindsight, I don't regret it, because we're back great buddies again now. But also, I had that mistake early on. I had a business partner early on that wasn't a good fit, and I learnt the lessons needed about how to choose somebody that I can work with, that is going to be important to help me grow the business. So I kind of got that mistake out of the way. And my next business partner, as you know, Patricia, I've been working with since I think it's 2015. He's a builder, and we've been able to grow the portfolio, really amazingly, because we just dovetail so well together. I mean, we're different personalities, we've got different skill sets, but what's similar, I would say, is we have the same work ethic, and we have very aligned values. So he is a bit of a perfectionist. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So we don't ever have issues about standard of work, so it works brilliantly. And I don't think that would have been the case if I hadn't have been through that earlier hiccup, shall we say. So
Do you know?
did that answer your question?
Oh, well, do you know what? As you were talking, I was literally just thinking about, and people who are Christians here and sort of like know the Bible, probably thought the same thing. Abraham and Lot, when they went their separate ways, and Abraham said to Lot, you choose, and he chose all the fertile land, and Abraham was left with, the not so good bits, but who actually thrived in the end. It literally just, that is what came to mind. Um, so yes, thank you very much for sharing that.
Actually, just to
Um,
add on from what you've just said, at the time, I don't suppose I really considered it. It just was the easiest way to clear things because my goal was to move forward, and the sooner I could do that, the better. So I was basically in that mindset. But actually, the property that I ended up keeping out of the ones that we'd bought has been the one that's been it's such a great example when I'm teaching because of the uplift that I got, because of the formulas that I followed in order to achieve the uplift, that I mean, I still would have been able to use that as an example, but the fact that I still have it in my portfolio, I think just gives that so much more strength. So I see that, I came out on top, really, although it did set me back initially. Um, yeah, so yeah, just wanted to add that.
Do you know, I've made a mistake with your interview because normally I say the first two questions cannot be property related, but I guess I opened myself to this because Fielding Financial is all about property. Well, not just about property, but largely about property. So, because normally no one talks about property at this stage, but I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it because what I'm now going to do is when you answer the second question, we are going to go back to what you've just spoken about, and go into it in a lot more detail, if that's okay. So, your second question, what was the process of you becoming the head of training for Fielding Financial?
Yeah, so the actual title I have is head of faculty, but I guess it means the same thing. Yeah, so I went and did. So I started as a student basically, and I did their initial training program, which is a 3-day course in 2012, June of 2012, and I then bought on to do their advanced program. Even though I didn't have the money, I stuck it on a couple of credit cards, but I had the faith and I had the why, as I've already mentioned. So, and basically we took action. So me and that business partner I've just been mentioning, we got stuck in and we started buying. And I think we started to gain attention, and because we'd done it in the way that we'd been taught, so we didn't have money, we had to learn how to do it with other people's money. We were using the formulas and finding deals that actually aligned with all of that. So um, the powers that be, I guess, noticed us. A chap called Jamie Barnett. I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but he's one of our trainers at Fielding, and his growth in property has been unbelievable. I mean, when he came to Fielding, he had, I think, 3 student HMOs. He now does multi high rise blocks for students, 200 plus rooms type thing. So very, very experienced. Anyway, he wasn't at that place then, but he kind of spotted what we were doing, and he said, would you like to do a webinar and with me and share your success and what you're doing with some of the other students? So I said yes. Now, at the time, it was quite scary because don't forget, my former career was photographer. So I didn't know anything about webinars or how to prepare for them. I actually literally had to knuckle down and learn how to use PowerPoint before this webinar so that I knew, so I could actually even create some slides. And that went well. And on the back of that, I then got asked to speak at one of the conferences where all the students come. And on the back of that, they asked if I would like to be part of the crew. So I said yes. It's that phrase that Richard Branson's known for: say yes and find out how later. So I joined the crew, and I think that was really important for my growth, actually, because property investing can be really difficult when you're own. And Clubhouse has been amazing for that because all of us are kind of connected on this basis. But when I started, that wasn't the case. Didn't have apps like this. And so the only way to stay connected was to be around those people that were doing it. And so being invited to be one of the crew members meant that I was constantly exposed to people that were doing deals, and I was learning and repetitive learning. Like, you know, I might be learning the same information, but it was going deeper each time I heard it. It's like peeling an onion, isn't it? So, and that, you know, ethos about hanging around with people that are just that little bit further ahead than you really helps bring you up. And so I think that was pivotal in my success. And then one day I'd been doing the crewing maybe for 6 or 7 months at this point. And Jill Fielding, I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but it's basically her company. She's a multimillionaire through property. She's been on the telly and all the rest of it. So it's her company. And she was with us on this particular weekend, and she said, "Okay, I'm looking for new speakers. Who fancies it?" And before I knew it, I kind of looked up and my hand was in the air. And I couldn't tell you, I have no recollection of how that happened, because I didn't want to be a speaker. It hadn't been on my list of goals. And I guess something took over. And so that was it. And they had a couple of established speakers at that time, but she was doing a lot of the presentations, and another lady called Maria Davis, who's a very established property investor. And so this was a big step for me. So it was myself and another lady put their hands up, and we basically had a fantastic sort of, well, it took me 6 months to train, and that meant lots of, you know, one-to-one time or two-to-one time with Jill. So I learned all of her secrets and tips and tricks and what have you. And so that conversation happened in the April, I think it would have been 2014, no, 2014, no, 2015, I apologize. And I went live in the October that year, doing the courses. And from there I then became a mentor, and the rest, as they say, is history. And you know, maybe shortly after that they gave me the head of faculty position. So yeah, so I think it's really, to sum up, how did I get the gig? I took what they taught me, I put it into practice, as terrifying as I was. Um, Not as terrifying as I was, sorry, as terrified as I was, not as
No,
terrified.
we know what you meant.
Although I have been told I'm terrifying, so maybe that wasn't a Freudian slip. Um, so yeah, I just put it into practice, and I think I have a way of delivering the information that people um, get inspired and gain confidence. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing it, I guess. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. Wow. So, first of all, congrats. And, you know, the mere fact that you are still with your original business partner is something that makes me marvel. That is just so amazing. So, can you just tell us? Because, you know, there might be people listening to this or people in the audience who might not be able to
I should probably
just.
ask, are you feeling a little bit more confident about going into biz with me now?
I never had any doubts. I think I'm more like, you know, the Richard Branson, which is, you know, start it and then, you know, just tweak things as you go along. If the desire is there, th- to my mind, there's no reason why things shouldn't succeed. But time will tell. Time will tell. No, no, no. And also, I respect you, and we have so much in common. I just thought, you know, no issues on my part. But I should ask you the same question. Any regrets yet?
No, I agree. I think, you know, when you and I met, it was there was an instant connection, wasn't there? And we do have a lot of we've got similar personalities, haven't we? And we've got a lot in common. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Oh, I know, amazing. And we've got our first room next week, but tomorrow actually. But this is not about that. So okay, so Kerry, you are very, very active in property. Talk us through your last project, how it went, the ups, the downs. You and I, we tell it as it is. We don't sugarcoat. So, and everything that I've done, there have been ups and downs. You know, I've come out the other end thinking, yeah, definitely well worth it. I'd do this again, if I had, my chance to do over. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there are ups and there are downs. So if you wouldn't mind, if you've had, a similar experience, can you just share with us maybe the last couple of projects? Actually, that would be good.
Yeah, I've got a couple that I can share that kind of fulfill this. So let me start with one that we did a couple of years ago, which was it was a probate property, and it was one of these family homes that people have extended again and again, such that when it's on the market at that point, it just was such a weird kind of layout that it obviously suited the family that lived there, but when it comes to the market, it really didn't. It wasn't selling itself, let's say. But from our perspective, looking at it from a developer eye and knowing the potential to change it into an HMO. I mean, it was screaming HMO right from the time that I saw it on Rightmove. I think it was Rightmove we saw it. Now, I didn't realise, and I will say this, until relatively recently, following a conversation with my business partner, that there's a real skill to being able to look at a floor plan and identify how you can, mix it up and make the best use of that. I thought everybody could do that, and I particularly thought that he could do it at being a builder. But no, he can't. So he relies on me to kind of be able to look at the property and scope out how we can get the best use out of it. Now, this property, it had a garage. They'd then converted, they'd joined the garage to the house. So there was this long walkway that sort of went from the front to back. It had been extended out the back, so there was a sort of an L-shaped, almost a U-shaped, actually, living dining space, and it hadn't been touched probably since the I want to say 60s, because the kitchen was in sort of avocado colour. So 60s, maybe 70s, so something like that. Anyway, the sale went through relatively well. We got it for a good price. We got it slightly below market value. So there weren't any hitches there. Now, the property was big enough to convert to 7 bedrooms. So it was 3 beds when we bought it, and we wanted to convert it to 7 bed, all en suite, and there was the space to do that. But those of you that already do HMOs, you know that when you go for 7 people or more, you need to get planning permission. So sui generis planning permission. And you always, as a developer, you want to have a fallback position, because we didn't know that we were going to get planning permission. So the property needed to work as a 6-person HMO. So we had plans drawn up for both 6-bed versions and 7-bed versions. And this involved moving the kitchen. And we moved the kitchen because you don't actually need windows in a kitchen, but you do need windows in a bedroom. So the former kitchen basically became a bedroom, and you need windows for living space as well. So we jigged the property around to make the best use of the space, and obviously put in for planning. Now, this is where it started to go wrong, and I've still got the grey hairs to prove it. So we engaged a planning consultant based on recommendation. But the person that had been recommended was not the person that we ended up dealing with, although they were still sold to us as an expert. And essentially, it became clear quite early on that they weren't very good. They were off sick a lot. It was difficult to get through, no communication. And the first planning permission basically got turned down without us even knowing anything had happened. The consultant didn't even contact us. I mean, it was just an absolute car crash. Anyway, my instinct was screaming, this isn't right. But because it was, we hadn't done this type of deal, we hadn't gone for the sui generis prior to this. So it was a new thing for us. So I kind of talked myself out of complaining, and thought, well, they're the expert, they know what they're doing. And foolishly, we had another go. Anyway, we're now how many years later? 3 or 4 years down the line, and we still haven't got planning permission on this property. Cut a long story short, we ended up. I mean, it's a running HMO and it works all day long as a 6 person. We did develop the 7th room. You don't need the planning permission to actually create the 7th room. You need the planning permission for the 7th person. So that room is sort of out of bounds at the moment. And we did end up complaining to the planning consultant company, and the guy has done it again for us for free. He's waived his fee. Sadly, I think the damage is done. So if we don't succeed this time round, and we were due to hear on the 7th of November, and here we are now in February, and we've not had any communication from the planning team at all at the council. So if we don't get it this time, then what we'll do is we'll turn that bedroom into a private lounge for one of the bedrooms and just charge slightly higher rent on that particular room. So we are slightly scarred from this. They turned it down based on lack of parking, by the way. Now, the driveway actually has 4 spaces, so it's quite laughable, really. And it's in a sort of private road where there's on-street parking, and we've done parking surveys, and every single time we've done parking surveys, and we're talking probably 10 to 15 surveys now. Every time we've done that, there's been no more than 1 or 2 cars on the street, and yet the reason for turning it down is lack of parking. So I mean, it's laughable, really. So yeah, so that's where something went wrong. But it also, like I say, it didn't, because it does work, and anything now, if we do get planning, will be a bonus on top of that.
Do you know,
There
I
were
was just
Yeah,
going
go
to
on.
ask you if why he didn't say for you to do like parking surveys, but you've done not just one but 10 to
Yeah,
15.
yes,
That
yeah.
is, oh, why didn't he take you to appeal? Because like
We
you
did
say, it's
we did go to
laughable.
appeal, but we were still with the negligent planning consultant, and she made mistakes, and
Ah, ah,
yeah, so
okay.
yeah, lessons learnt, massive lessons learnt on that, because it would have been accepted on appeal, no doubt. So yeah. We also had issues, by the way, with the broker on this particular deal as well. So once we'd finished the works, we then went to apply for the refinance, and the broker kept saying to us, "Well, you need rent statements." And I said, "Well, no, we don't, because we've worked with this lender before, and they haven't asked for rent statements before. I mean, we can give rent statements for those that we've already got people in, but he wanted us to have the property fully let before he would even go for refinance, and he kept dragging his heels. So I don't know what that was all about. Maybe it was a way to create extra funds for the lend. I don't know. It was just really odd, and we did end up complaining, and we did get some money back. Not a lot, but they did basically put their hands up and say, well, the lender did put their hands up and said that there were unnecessary delays. So the refinance took a year on that one. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Sorry, when I say a year, I don't mean from when we applied for the refinance, but it was probably 6 months. So we weren't happy with that. So all in all, that particular deal gave us lots of headaches. But every time you have challenges, you learn. You know what not to do next time. And so I don't begrudge any of the things that go wrong. And I'm naturally sort of cautious anyway. So we mitigate for a lot of these things anyway. But you can't know everything. You can't possibly know everything. I don't know if you've ever heard the explanation of the stuff that you know. If we took everything that we knew, or everything that there is possible to know, you draw a circle, and in that circle there would be segments. There would be the stuff that you know that you know. There would be the stuff that you know that you don't know. But the biggest section in that circle would be the stuff that you don't know that you don't know. And that's what we can't possibly mitigate for, because we don't know. So I hope I haven't just confused everyone with that little circle. I'm doing Venn diagrams
No,
on Clubhouse. That's clearly not going to work, is it?
do you know, that is such a great analogy. And if I can just interject right here, it's for people who keep second guessing themselves. We all are human beings. And if head of faculty can admit to not knowing everything, don't expect for you to know everything. Just know where you can get answers from, and know again the stuff that you don't know. Because once you know the stuff you don't know, you can go about learning and moving that segment into the stuff that you know. But Kerry, I couldn't agree with you more. It's the stuff that we don't know that causes the most problems. Absolutely the most. It's so great to just hear you say that, because people think that they should know everything and they can know everything. And it stops, I think, in my view, in any event, some people from taking action. But I shall, as people say, I shall, what do they say? I surrender the mic or something like that.
Sorry, I was pressing buttons there and I've got myself in a pickle. Right, yes. So, was there another question in there?
No, I was just agreeing with you. So you weren't listening to me.
Oh,
Well, you're not listening to me, Kerry.
well, I was, but you know how you get caught on the back channel. So, my apologies. Oh, I've just called it back channel, back chat. I prefer back chat.
Back chat. No, no problems. I was just saying, um, it's refreshing to hear you admit to not knowing everything, because people actually expect that they should know everything. And I was just saying, we can't all know everything, as you've just very clearly explained. So it's more about learning about the things that we know we don't know, and surrounding ourselves um with people who might be able to know the things that we don't know. Anyway,
Well, I'm
I've
going to share
just
with you
confused
something
myself.
I don't know, and that's all the changes on Clubhouse. I know you've asked me to share my Facebook, and I haven't got a clue. I'm pressing buttons left, right, and centre, which is why I got myself in a pickle. So,
But you see, then that's
yeah,
something that you don't know.
indeed,
And
yes.
okay, so for people in the room, people who are going to be listening, to the replays or on the podcast, I've been trying to pin Kerry's Facebook link, but Facebook won't let me do it. So I wondered if they'd let Kerry do it. But if you would like to know, you can go to https colon // www.facebook.com/. So this is the bit that you need, Kerry.Beckingsale. So Facebook /Kerry.Beckingsale. So neither of us have been able to pin it up here for the benefit of people in the room. But if you're listening, even if you're in the room, if you want to go there, just go into your browser, enter Facebook /Kerry.Beckingsale. Right, okay, that's over and done with.
Phew. Right. So let me mention the other deal then, which also had challenges, probably not quite so challenging, but this was a flat in a converted building, and it's listed. Now, when we went to view the property, I asked the agent, I said, is this listed? It looked like it would be listed. It's, gorgeous high ceilings, Edwardian type building, just, really stunning ceiling roses, high skirting boards. You can picture the kind of place. And the agent said to me, oh, no, no, it's not listed. So we were really surprised. Anyway, so we put in our offer because listed, for those of you, I mean, I'm sure loads of people in the room know, but listed buildings can be challenging when you're developing them. You need to get listed building consent, and there's a lot of things you can't do. You can't just replace the windows. You can't do anything that's going to materially affect the exterior of the building, etc., etc. And obviously, it's because they're trying to preserve our history, our beautiful buildings. So we didn't want to proceed on this if it was listed, because we knew that what we wanted to do was move the kitchen, which is in a standalone room at that time, into the living area. And this is by the coast, and the living area actually benefits from sea views. And how we live these days, most people sort of live in their open plan living or like to live in the open plan living, and it just made sense to us to move the kitchen. But that would have meant relocating the boiler and also the water meter, which of course are affecting the exterior of the property. So we did, if it had been listed, we wouldn't have gone ahead with it. Anyway, we're going through the buying process, and you get your buyer information forms, and one of the questions to the vendor is the property listed, and the answer was no. And we were buying this last year. So any of you that were buying last year, well, and even this year for that matter, how slow it is with getting the searches done, etc. So the search, we had our offer accepted in September, and we didn't complete until the middle of January, but we only got our searches literally the week before completion, or 2 weeks before, something like that. It was quite late, and obviously in the searches it came up that it was listed. So our hunch had been right all along, and we should have dug down further. So again, lesson learned. You've got to follow your instinct. Your instinct is such an important part of this property investing malarkey, and we didn't. But anyway, at that point we were so in love with the building, we just decided to go for it anyway. But of course, if we'd known it was listed back in September, we'd have got our listed building application in back then. Because of course that's another thing that seems to be taking forever at the moment, is anything to do with planning permission and anything to do with listed building consent. So these things are taking ages, and that held things up. We'd
Actually,
anticipated.
Kerry,
Yep, go on.
let me correct you. If you'd known it was listed back in September, you wouldn't have offered on it.
Well, this is true, and actually, I'm kind of glad that we didn't now, because it's been a really good deal for us, and will continue to be, I think. So sometimes accidents or mistakes happen for the benefit of because like you quite rightly said, we wouldn't have proceeded with it. Because I've got other listed properties, but my business partner is a bit nervous about doing that sort of thing because of these delays, etc. So yeah, so the refurb was due to be completed by April, and we didn't actually finish it until December. And the main delay there was partly the listed building consent, which took 7 months, and then also the getting the meter moved, because they wouldn't even consider having conversations with us until the consent came through. And then, of course, that took ages to. So we got on with what we could in the background while we were waiting. But we bought it for 150. We spent 40, and it's just refinanced at 225. So we're just going to get a nice little lump sum in our bank any day. And and we've already had some great comments from local. Got an advert running at the moment to assess demand. We've got high rental figures in mind, so it's looking good. So there's always things that go wrong, and there's always things that go right despite yourself. So property can be very forgiving, but it can also be very unforgiving, I think.
So with this one, your offer was that, or you actually saw it, stroke made an offer in September, not last year, 2020.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it sounds. Do you know, two things you've highlighted during this talk? One is that, do not expect to know everything. Impossible. Number two is that if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. It's about how you turn it around and how you make it work for you. And I love the example that you've given. You loved the property, and that is how it's really, really helped you. Because I know there's a train of thought that says when you're buying to invest in, don't buy it because you like it. But I can't buy anything I don't like. Personally, I have to like that place. I have to be able to see myself in that place. And I think for me, this is my second exit type thing. Before going in, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to go out if I need to. And the more attractive the property, the easier it's going to be for you to offload it. So I think maybe in my head, that's what's always going on. But great stuff. So how tall were your ceilings in this flat? It just sounds amazing. How big were your windows? I'm picturing massive picture windows.
Yeah, I mean they are big. I mean, don't ask me dimensions because I'm not that way inclined. I mean, I'm sure Andy would be able to tell you, but I mean the windows aren't. Are they floor to ceiling? I mean, certainly in the lounge area, they're almost, yeah, they're not quite floor to ceiling, but the ceiling is, what's a normal ceiling height?
Normal is usually about 2.4. Listed buildings, conservation areas, most of those will be about 3.2.
Yeah,
And
I
listing,
I would say it's at least double a normal, but potentially even more than that in the main living area.
right,
um,
right.
and the master bedroom, and actually one of the other bedrooms as well. There's one bedroom that doesn't have the full height ceiling, and that's because there's a loft hatch space up there. So, but the rest of it is, yeah, it's lovely.
Could you have like put some mezzanine floors in, or would
Yeah,
that
I suppose so. But for us, we've already taken it from a two bed to a three bed. So anything further, we've also got to bear in mind it's a flat within another building, so we didn't want to overdevelop. Bearing in mind we've got neighbours as well, and we've primarily developed this to be a holiday let. So that was why we had to like it, because it was part of and parcel that we want somewhere that we can use as well. So, but I'll be honest with you, I've got properties that I wouldn't live in. I
really?
don't I don't love all of my properties. No, I wouldn't live in some of my buy-to-lets up north.
Can you
Um, I
can you paint a picture of one of them for us? I can't see
Yeah,
anything right
well, I
now.
mean, so they're sort of terrace properties. I mean, I don't. It's probably not so much about the property, but perhaps the area. I suspect.
Oh, okay.
No.
And then okay, so with those areas, so they're not that nice. I'm assuming is what we're talking about here. How do you then find tenants? I guess there's always a
Yeah.
tenant for, in every area.
So
But
I've
how
yeah. Go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, what is your relationship with them? Are they good? Are they considerate? What type of tenants are they?
Yeah, so I've primarily got sort of social housing tenants. I mean, sometimes they have jobs, sometimes they don't. I mean, I prefer them with jobs, but they are good rental properties, because what you find is that people that live in these sorts of areas, that they've often grown up in the area, and maybe their cousin lives in the street but one, and their mum's at the end of the road. So they tend to sort of stick around for a long time. And Patricia, like any of us that are in this game, that the longer that you've got your tenants in there, the more profitable it is for you, because it's when you have the voids that it costs you money, not only because you've got a period of time where there's not somebody in there, but also you generally have to do a sort of a bit of a touch up each time somebody moves out and somebody new moves in. So actually, if you've got a tenant that wants to stay there for a long, long time, you're doing something right. And generally, I would say I've got pretty good timescales with the majority of my tenants, even our HMOs. I mean, we've literally just had a tenant move out from one of our HMOs this week, and I think it might be because he's lost his job. And he's been with us since we bought the property, and that one we purchased in 2019. So, and that's not unusual for our HMOs. They stay with us a long time. So I think if you get it right, you buy the right property in the right area, you can feed different types of strategies. So our HMOs, we go for professionals, but I don't have a problem going for social housing tenants in some of my buy-to-lets. Not all of them. I have buy-to-lets in other areas as well that are more affluent. So what my ethos is, diversify. I think it's important to have different types of properties in different types of areas with different types of tenants, because if there's a big, I mean, I get the argument that if you've got everything in one strategy, then you've got a massive economies of scale, which means that you're as efficient as you possibly can be. But if something goes wrong, um, it can wipe you out. So obviously, when COVID hit, we had a massive shift, didn't we, in 2020 of certainly in the student HMO market, and there were lots of landlords that were, students not paying and all sorts of stuff. And if you'd had all of your eggs in that basket, I mean, I imagine that could have been. I mean, I don't know if anybody got wiped out, but I'm sure there would have been some squeaky bum moments for sure for people. So I think for me, what works for me is diversification.
Do you know, that sounds, yeah, definitely sensible. And you've definitely taken that the diversification not only to the strategies that you employ, but also to where you actually employ them, in the country. So sounds good. So your place is on the seaside. You've got sea views from the lounge. People, if you're looking to book, and Kerry's not asked me to say this, if you're looking to book a seaside holiday, back channel Kerry, back chat with Kerry, a tap on her face and go to her Instagram and follow her so that you can actually message her. So, Kerry, we are coming to an end here. Tell me, how have you found the price increases, and how have you been able to kind of like, have they affected you? Maybe not. If they have, how have you been able to kind of like, absorb it and make it not adversely affect your business?
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying there's been a massive jump in materials and also labour, for that matter. So the property that I've been sharing with you that we've recently finished, we were massively over budget, and we were concerned, obviously, but because the market has shot up so much, whatever extra we spent, we've gained even more in the new value. So we actually had anticipated the new value of the flat to be 200,000, and we've got 225. So it's more than compensated. We also benefit because, as I've said, Andy, my business partner, he's a builder. So he doesn't mark anything up. He also has, big trade discounts with places like Howdens, etc. I'm also a member of the LNPG, so we benefit from discounts there as well. And just, working with established trade that Andy he's has known for, many years. I mean, we probably not the most efficient, but we did actually have some of our guys from Oxfordshire coming out to the West Coast to help with the flat, just because Andy knows that he can trust them, and he knows what he's getting, rather than sort of taking on or risking using somebody new and it having to be redone. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a problem. Can I see it changing in the near future? No. I mean, I think it's only going to get worse with the issues that we've got surrounding inflation. I mean, how the government normally control inflation is they bring interest rates down. Well, they've got nowhere to go with interest rates. So, I think we've got to bed down and we've got to anticipate further rises. But that will have a knock-on effect with the property market as well. I believe. And I think all if you're worried about this, just be really super conservative with your figures and build in some really healthy contingencies, and that's what we're going to be doing moving forward. But I think you've also got to tread a fine line, because um, you can talk yourself out of doing things, particularly large sums of money involved in property development, and if you're overcautious, guess what? You aren't going to get the deal. Someone else is going to snaffle it away from you. So there's a fine line between um, preparing and also, talking yourself out of stuff. So yeah, don't let anybody stop them from moving forward just because the figures are high right now.
Oh, thank you, Kerry. Three things I'm getting. One, you're not going to know everything. Two, you can make mistakes, but dig yourself out of them, make it work for you. And three, don't let other people talk you out of what you believe to be a good thing. Do you know what more could I ask for, Kerry? In a guest series podcast.
I don't know,
What
but
more?
there might be something coming. Let's see. We've got 10 minutes. You might throw a curveball at me yet.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Oh, honestly, it's been. Do you know? I'm in my squeaky chair, And I have to say to myself mentally, do not move when you're on when you're not muted, because the chair just squeaks. Actually, I'm gonna. Can you hear it? Anyway,
Yeah, but mine's squeaking as well, so you're in good company.
we're a right pair, aren't we? Honestly, thank you so much. So, as Kerry said during her intro, she's an educator, she's a mentor. If you want to reach out to Kerry, talk to her about her services, tap on her face, follow her, scroll down her Clubhouse bio, um, go to her Instagram link, and sorry, go to her Instagram link and follow her over to Instagram, where you can also message her, and she will no doubt be able to answer any questions that you might have for her. And I have of recent not been inviting people up to ask my guest questions, but today, does anyone have any questions for Kerry before we close the room? In fact, somebody mentioned that to me. They said, oh, we have questions. And in fact, I've got some back chat comments. Let me see if they're questions for you. Okay. Now, what I think would also be good before we actually close down the room would be, Kerry, what mindset, as you and I know, can be a big factor in people either succeeding or not succeeding. What do you, as an educator, have to say about that?
Oh my God, I would say it's probably more important than the knowledge. I mean, you need both. You need the knowledge, but if you don't have the right attitude, or if you're overcome with fear, or if you can't create the habits that are needed to sort of move you forward, then it's going to be very difficult to be successful. So I would say prioritize mindset, as something that every single person, no matter what field you're in, I think is so important. I mean, I've had lots of things that have happened to me in my life that have, I guess, helped me with my mindset, and sometimes those are quite big, scary things, and at the time they seem insurmountable, but they're it's almost the universe, if you like, sending you prompts to help you develop and grow as a person, and come out the other side fighting. So yeah, I mean, it's critical.
So these things that you've spoken about, are you able to share any details with us? You don't have to, but if you're able to, it might just put, what you've just said into
Yeah,
context.
yeah, absolutely. Happy to. I mean, I've shared about one of them on here before, but basically back in 2005, I had quite something scary happen to me. I was at work. I was in shooting some cosmetics actually in the studio that day. I didn't have any customers with me. It was a test shoot for a shoot that I had coming up, and I started to have a really strange sensation, which then led to me having an epileptic fit, which then led to going to hospital, having various tests, etc. And I was then diagnosed with a brain tumor. So completely out of nowhere, complete curveball. Hadn't really suffered from anything prior to that, just the occasional cold or flu, but nothing major. And so all of a sudden life got interrupted in a major way. And it's interesting because people ask me about that period of my life and say, well, it must have been really scary. And don't get me wrong, there were scary moments, but quite soon after I had that diagnosis, once I'd got over the shock, it was almost like on some level, I knew it was coming, or it was my destiny, or meant to be. I'm going a bit woo woo here now, but I just felt a sense of calm with it all. And because of that, I had the skill set to be able to come out the other side. And I genuinely believe that the way that I handled it is why I'm alive today. Because I don't think I would be alive today if I'd taken a different tack mentally. And so the mindset that I was okay, I was going to be okay. Oh, by the way, I didn't know I was good. I could have died. I did actually align myself with three possible outcomes. The first one was that I might die. The second one was that I might end up brain damaged if they operated. And the third one was that I would recover. But I wasn't attached to any specific outcome. And I made peace with it could be anything. And I was along for the ride, and let's see what life could teach me. And, I did obviously put into place, completely changed my eating habits, cut out dairy, gluten, sugar, processed foods, alcohol, coffee. I was literally just eating fish, fruit, veg, the occasional bit of white meat, and just drinking, at least 2 litres of water a day. And so when they actually operated on me in the November, which was sort of 5 months after I had that seizure that I mentioned, the tumour had gone. So by having that sort of positive, well, not positive mental attitude, but aligning myself to whatever the outcome was going to be, it was going to be okay. And then putting into action, that diet plan, I truly believe I healed myself. And if I'd if I'd taken it on board differently and I'd been why me and, thinking about the negative, I genuinely don't believe I'd be alive today. So that's how important mindset is. It's the pivotal for everything. So I mean, I work on mine daily. I don't know about you, Patricia. Do you do stuff daily? I mean, I know you go to church, and of course that helps with this kind of calmness as well, doesn't it?
Oh gosh, do you know? If I didn't believe in God, I don't know where I would be, because when I'm suffering, like, some emotional trauma, or whatever it might be, that's unsettling me, I turn to God. And once I do, it just literally just ebbs away. Literally just ebbs away. So yeah, that helps me. Um and I think also, coronavirus in itself, the COVID period, if I can just call it that, that's also really helped me. Things that I used to stress about before COVID, I now just think, oh, it could be a lot worse. And it really could be a lot worse. And I just don't worry about it. So I'm having a whale of a time at the moment. um, and yeah, mindset is good. And also, I think Kerry, as you're saying, it can be really important, and it also depends on who we are. If you're a person who needs to be in complete control of what you're doing, then you need to be thinking about the things yourself. But if you go somewhere and somebody's telling you what to do, it's not good. It's not going to help you, because you need to come to that realization yourself. Now, people might help you get there, but you need to find somebody who's not going to say to you, do this, do that. You need more somebody who's going to say, well, what about this? Have you considered that? And just, yeah, I agree with you. But
Of
this is
course,
your room. This is your
yeah.
room, Kerry.
I was just going to say, of course, it's a complete illusion that we have any control over anything at all anyway, because we don't. At any point in time, things happen that we don't anticipate. So we don't really have any control over anything. We think we do, but we don't. And at the sooner that we can ease up on things having to be a certain way and just go with the flow, when you start to go with the flow, life just works. And I don't know about you, but life sends you messages all the time, and if you ignore those messages becomes more severe. So for me, it took a brain tumor to get me on the right path. For others, it might not be quite so severe, but so I would say, use your instinct, listen out to the messages that come into your life. If something is proving to be really difficult, just check in and see, well, hang on a second, maybe this is not the right path for me. Maybe there's a different path. So I would say instinct plays a big part, mindset plays a big part, and just be open to the messages that life gives you.
Oh, Kerry Beckingsale, honestly,
Oh, you
thank you
make me feel
so
like I've done
much.
something naughty if you say my surname.
No, 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 no. I am just in awe. Do you know, I love you, my guests, because everyone is so different and everyone is so real and so honest. And I am lucky that I have you guys to come on here and share with people, because the things that I value the most are the things that I'm getting from you guys. And, you would probably say, yeah, Patricia, that is because, people know what you're about and who you are. And, like attracts like. Whatever it is, I am just so grateful. Kerry,
Hey, you're welcome. Listen, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I know that we're going to have a great time working together. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to, be with you today, and I wish you every success with it moving forward.
thank you very much. And
Are you going to shout out our
um,
room tomorrow?
Um, no. Oh, okay. Let's do it. Let's do it. Although for people who might be listening on the replays, stroke on the podcast, come onto Clubhouse and search for Property Kudos. So Kerry and I are starting a new room tomorrow. Going to be on Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Oh, it's going to be great. And off of that, we are, because each of us have been, we've been inundated with requests to do something else, and we are only who we are. Kerry's only her. I'm only me. So anyway, we are coming together to do a mastermind. It's going to be a new mastermind, and we're starting in Q2 of this year. And people with questions can come onto can come into our rooms Thursdays, 10:30, and ask us questions about them. Otherwise, we have a very simple website called Property Kudos. So it's propertykudos.co.uk. You can go there. And if you're interested in the mastermind, we are completely open about what we're doing. And we've put our price on there as well. So, the nosy people in the room and on the replays and listening to the podcasts, even though you may not be interested, you might fancy going along to see how much we're going to be charging. We are not about, and there'll be no upsells. If people are interested in anything else, yes, they can talk about it, but we're not going to be saying to people, you must do this and it's going to cost you an extra whatever. No, that's not us. Transparency, openness, knowledge, networking, that is what Property
Can I add a
Kudos.
word? Empowering as well. That's what we want.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. Because otherwise, there's no point. So that is what that's all about. Thank you so, so much. And next week, Wednesday at 12 noon, I've got Ian Walmsley, who's going to come on here and talk to us about why he is the planning geek. Oh, it should be interesting. So if you like these podcasts, why not subscribe and review them, good or bad? Just be honest. And any feedback is welcome. And on that note, I'm just going to say thank you, everyone, for spending your afternoon in this room with us. And Kerry, I've got to know you even a little bit more, even though I didn't think that was going to be possible. So thank you very much for sharing what you have shared with us. Really appreciate it. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.